In the deepest, most hidden corners of the internet, a legend was born. A ghost who built an empire where anything could be bought. Drugs, weapons, forbidden knowledge, all paid for with untraceable digital cash. They called him the Dread Pirate Roberts. A mastermind who evaded the FBI, Interpol, and the world's most powerful governments. His kingdom? The Silk Road. His fortune? Over $1.2 billion. But the most shocking part of this story wasn't the empire. It wasn't the money. It was the man behind the mask. Because the Dread Pirate Roberts wasn't a man at all. He was a boy. A bright-eyed, idealistic teenager from Texas, who still lived with his mom. This is the story of how a dream of freedom became a nightmare of power, and how the most wanted man on the internet was finally brought down by a single, fatal mistake. He was a boy. A bright-eyed, idealistic teenager from Texas, who still lived with his mom. This is the story of how a dream of freedom became a nightmare of power, and how the most wanted man on the internet was finally brought down by a single, fatal mistake. He read books by libertarian economists and dreamed of a world without government overreach. But Ross wasn't just a dreamer, he was a coder. A brilliant one. And he began to wonder, what if he could use technology to create a truly free market? A place where people could buy and sell without fear, without borders, without Big Brother watching. It started as a thought experiment. A project. Little did he know, he was about to strike a match in a room filled with gasoline. In early 2011, from the quiet of his bedroom, Ross unleashed his creation onto the dark web. He called it the Silk Road, a nod to the ancient trade routes. To hide his identity, he adopted a name from his favorite movie, The Princess Bride, the Dread Pirate Roberts. The rules were simple: no weapons, no stolen goods, no anything that could harm others. But everything else? It was a digital gold rush. The site exploded. From a few hundred users to thousands. Then tens of thousands. Bitcoin, then an obscure cryptocurrency, flowed like water. Ross was no longer just a coder, he was a king. He was taking a 10% cut on every transaction, and millions were pouring into his digital wallet. He had done it. He had created an unstoppable, anonymous free market. But with great power, comes great attention. And the eyes of the world were starting to turn. The empire of the Dread Pirate Roberts now turned the internet into a battlefield. On one side, a lone anarchist genius in his 20s. On the other, the combined might of the FBI, DEA, and Homeland Security. This was a new kind of war. They couldn't trace the money. They couldn't break his encryption. The Tor network was a labyrinth with no center. For 2 years, it was a game of cat and mouse where the mouse was invisible. They knew his name, his legend, but the man was a ghost. He was untouchable. But empires fall from the inside. The pressure, the paranoia, started to change Ross. The idealistic boy began to slip away, replaced by a ruthless king. He started talking about expanding, even discussing murder for hire to protect his domain. The dream of freedom was curdling into an obsession with control. After years of evasion, the FBI finally found a crack. An early post, from before he was careful, where Ross had used the same online alias to ask a programming question, and linked it to his personal email. They tracked him. They watched him. And on October 1, 2013, in the quiet Glen Park Library in San Francisco, the ghost became a man. As he typed away, administering his billion-dollar empire from a $600 laptop, a hand fell on his shoulder. He didn't fight. He didn't run. He just sighed. The game was over. The Dread Pirate Roberts was dead. All that was left was Ross Ulbricht, a terrified young man in over his head. At his trial, the boy king was sentenced to die in prison. No parole. Ever. The government made an example of him. Was he a dangerous criminal mastermind? Or a naive idealist who lost control of his own creation? The Silk Road sparked a revolution it couldn't control. It proved the power of cryptocurrency and the dark web, for better or worse. It created a blueprint that others, far more sinister, would follow. Ross Ulbricht's story is a modern tragedy. A warning about the seductive nature of power and the thin line between a revolutionary and a criminal. It asks us a difficult question: can a dream be so pure that it justifies a nightmare? What do you think? Was Ross Ulbricht a villain, a hero, or something much more complicated? Let us know in the comments below. If you fell down the rabbit hole with us, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories from the darkest corners of the digital world. Until next time.